Coming up is part 2 of my DVD Classics Corner on the Air salute to the most electrifying film noir masterpiece ever created, Night and the City. The following program is exclusively produced and distributed by Dick Dinman's Double D Productions, Inc., all rights reserved. Hi, Golden Age film fanatics, and welcome to DVD Classics Corner on the Air. My name is Dick Dinman, and our goal is to become your exclusive guide to the very best of the Golden Age classics coming out on DVD. We'll have reviews, breaking news of upcoming releases, plenty of surprise guests, and a special feature devoted to the great Golden Age film composers, which we call Cinemusic. So let's turn on the marquee and lights, camera, action. It's time for Dick's Picks, in which I get to shine the spotlight on one of my Dick's Picks of the week. There are many reasons that the Criterion Collection has earned their reputation as the Tiffany of home video outfits. One is the fact that the pristine visual and aural quality of all their releases is a given. The other is the fact that they remain incomparably selective of which titles they'll release on DVD and Blu-ray. To illustrate, just listen to this list of my favorite recent Criterion releases. Not one, but two of Preston Sturges' brilliant comedy classics, The Palm Beach Story and Sullivan's Travels. Leo McCarey's rarely seen and heartrending Make Way for Tomorrow, Nicholas Roeg's hauntingly erotic Don't Look Now, possibly the finest family film ever made, The Black Stallion, Charlie Chaplin's poignant late-career masterpiece, Limelight, two of my favorite Francois Truffaut masterworks, The Soft Skin and Day for Night. And what a bonanza for film noir fanatics. Titles to dream about that are now a reality. Ride the Pink Horse, Carol Reed's Odd Man Out, not one but two versions of Ernest Hemingway's The Killers in one amazing collection. The Friends of Eddie Coyle, which features what many consider Robert Mitchum's finest performance. And to top this gallery of noir greats is what I consider the most brazenly electrifying film noir of all time, Jules Dassin's Night and the City, which I guarantee will get a grip on you from frame one to its violent conclusion and never let you go. Every single one of these Criterion Collection classics are available now at your local video emporium or online, even as we speak. Stay tuned for more Dick's Picks, coming up on DVD Classics Corner on the Air very soon. And today, I salute the Criterion Collection's stunning Blu-ray release of Jules Dassin's monumentally intense descent into darkness, Night and the City, which stars Richard Widmark in what is unquestionably his finest performance. And my treasured returning guest is author Glenn Erickson, whose website, Dvd Savant, is my single favorite film classic review site, and whose commentary track on Criterion's Night and the City is just one of the highlights of this terrific release. Glenn Erickson, welcome back to DVD Classics Corner on the Air for part 2 of our tribute to Criterion's incredible 4K restoration of two versions of the noir masterpiece, Night and the City. I want to discuss the cast of Night and the City because it's a remarkable cast. So many actors at the very top of their game. Primarily, and I'm talking about one of my particular favorite actors, Richard Widmark. And I believe that this is his single greatest performance. Would you agree with that?
Certainly. I don't think I'm necessarily the most sensitive person to performances, but this one simply knocks me out. He's simply incredible.
Jules Dassin, in his commentary on the special features, expresses a certain amount of regret at the direction that Richard Widmark's career took after that. And I pretty much have to agree with that. Certainly after he left Fox, his choice of roles was highly questionable, and he didn't stretch himself at all comparatively. In this role as Harry Fabian, what he does is taking chances almost every step of the game. To me, it's a very courageous performance. Would you agree with that?
Certainly. I look at that performance and you kind of wonder how he does it. Here's an actor who was originally typecast as a vicious villain with that chortling laugh that everybody, made everybody kind of laugh and feel sick to their stomach when they listened to him.
Yeah.
And from what we hear, he was trying very hard to get out of that groove and become a normal leading man, to have more diverse roles. And instead, for this show, he apparently liked the character so much that he just went all out. And compared to this, Tommy Udo was just an ordinary, punk with a few mannerisms.
Yeah.
This fellow is a totally, I guess we can say, organic weirdo from the ground up. He's such a nervous, driven, insecure, hateful, spiteful, resentful guy from the very beginning, and he just goes uphill from there. You start out in this level of bland hysteria, and it just goes crazier from then on, and it never loses pitch. It's hard. There's like 5 or 6 scenes where he's almost screaming at people, and it never goes sour or false or seems wrong. It's very impressive to me. I wouldn't know how an actor could do that.
Well, and the other thing is, just by the way he recites one line, I feel sorry for the character, no matter how terrible he is, and the awful thing, and the lives he destroys. When he says, "I just want to be somebody," there is such plaintive, desperate longing there that it's difficult not to feel sorry for him. It's a performance that somehow covers all the bases. It's one of my all-time favorite performances of any actor. I think it's film acting at its very height. For me, it's thrilling to watch an actor extend himself to the to that degree. And it's as if, because Widmark really wanted to be a movie star. He said that many times, "I'm in the movies." And he wanted to be a movie star and play, basically, he much preferred sympathetic roles. But for him to put himself out like this...
Well, he has this screaming insecurity about him. Like you said, I just want to be somebody. And that hits us all because, most of us don't, especially when you're young and trying to find your place in the world. You're looking for role models, you're looking for things to do. And all this poor, unimaginative fellow can think of to do is to cheat and use other people to get his way. Mm-hmm. And it's this, it's like the bad guy in high school who finally shows his true colors, and no one trusts or likes him anymore because he's finally done one too many bad things. But it's painful to see him make all these terrible errors. It's as if he had been decent and true to 2 people in that story, he would have, prevailed. Everything would have worked. But he's compelled to just double cross everyone he knows, and he's unlucky enough to have it all come back to him in the worst way.
What's fascinating about Widmark is he rose to prominence in the 40s, about the same time that Burt Lancaster, Kirk Douglas, Robert Mitchum did, all of whom made their careers early on, essentially in noir.
Mm-hmm.
And those actors went on to be superstars. Widmark didn't. I took a look at some of the grosses of Widmark films for Fox, and it's kind of stunning how few of them made a profit. Some of his best films, which I consider his best films, No Way Out being a very specific example, and
Panic in the Streets.
Especially Panic in the Streets, which was his favorite film. They both lost lots of money.
Oh.
Pickup on South Street broke even because it was shot so fast and so economically, I think in 18 or 19 days, something like that. But basically, audiences did not respond to Widmark the way they responded to Mitchum, Douglas, and
look
Lancaster.
At it this way. Widmark was not a romantic idol. You know, I've seen pictures of movie theaters in New York showing Brute Force, I believe it was, with Burt Lancaster, and all there are out front are pictures of this guy with no shirt on, rippling his muscles, you know, to attract what kind of crowds, I don't know, but look kind of, that's his appeal.
Yeah.
And Richard Widmark was just an actor's actor.
Yeah.
Basically, they probably thought he was a glorified character actor who could carry leading roles because he was such a good player.
Widmark, for instance, in Pickup on South Street, his rather rough romantic scenes with Gene Peters are really kind of sexy.
Very sexy.
Very sexy. Widmark left Fox at a point where he thought he was going nowhere. And it's interesting to see, I don't know whether you're aware of the roles that Zanuck had in mind for Widmark, if he would have stayed at Fox. And I've got three of them right here. You may be surprised. He was going to play the third lead in The Tall Men, which Robert Ryan picked up. He was going to play the lead in the Western The Proud Ones, which again went to Robert Ryan. And this is, for me, the most intriguing. He was going to have the starring role, the heroic starring role, in House of Bamboo, which was a remake of The Street with No Name, in which Widmark played the heavy. So, in effect, he was going to play the hero in this film opposite Robert Ryan. Can you imagine Widmark and Ryan in the same film?
Well, that sounds awfully good to me.
It sure does.
I see him leaving and moving on to strong character leads where he isn't necessarily romantic, but he is the good guy. And he also tried in the late 50s to be a producer on his own. I don't think that turned out very well. And he the fact was that he was extremely well liked in Hollywood. He was a very nice fellow. He was a good family man. He came from a solid background. He had taught college for a year before he went to New York. He graduated from a college in Minnesota, taught for a year at the same school he graduated from. He taught English and drama, and then went right to New York to work with George Abbott on the Broadway stage, and that's where they found him, a bunch of years later. But you see him not always the right fit for roles. He's, of course, plays lots of prosecutors, especially in Judgment at Nuremberg. And he seems to still have this kind of drive, this edge, this anger in him. The strangest role that I know of him that doesn't seem the right fit is a movie with Doris Day called
Tunnel of Love. For me, Tunnel of Love is one of two of the most embarrassing miscastings that Widmark endured. The first was The Cobweb, which was supposed to team Robert Taylor and Lana Turner, both of whom were not available, and MGM reluctantly hired Widmark for the role because they'd had a very good experience with Widmark in a film called Take the High Ground, which was quite profitable. But Widmark was terribly miscast in that. The second, and the most embarrassing of all, was Tunnel of Love, in which he was a last-minute replacement for Glenn Ford, who was under contract to MGM and set to play the lead in Tunnel of Love, and he would have been fine. But unfortunately, Tunnel of Love was a disaster. There was no chemistry between he and Doris Day, and it was very sadly poorly directed by Gene Kelly.
Well, when in Tunnel of Love, and I watch it, and you see Richard Widmark basically giving this nervous, frightened-looking, insecure performance.
Yeah.
Whenever I used to cut gag reels at MGM, a home video, I'd take this shot of him turning to the camera, and with his big, wide, scared eyes, he says, "Moo goo gai pan," about some kind of food. I'd do that. I almost think the Tunnel of Love, he looks so... Doris Day is so happy and carefree, and he looks so tortured that I always think that might be a dream sequence in Night in the City where he marries, he marries Gene Tierney, but things don't work out.
Right. We have to go to a station break, and we'll be right back with Glenn Erickson and more on Night in the City star Richard Widmark.
We pause now for station identification.
DVD Classics Corner on the Air is exclusively produced and released by Dick Dinman's Double D Productions, Inc. All rights reserved. It's interesting because in last week's show we discussed Zanuck's benevolence and kindness as far as Gene Tierney was concerned. The one thing about Zanuck which is pretty consistent is the fact that if he wanted you to stay at Fox when your 7-year contract was up and renew, and you decided not to, he would always, and this is highly consistent, get revenge with billing. Stars that were about to leave Fox, who he wanted to keep on, were among them were Don Amici, Dana Andrews, Mark Stevens, and John Payne, all of whom had their billing dropped during their last Fox films. Widmark had the worst cut of all, in that Widmark in Broken Lance, which was his last under-contract Fox film, received an unprecedented fourth billing.
Well, was it a case that he didn't want to spend money promoting people that would be working for other studios? Is that why? Or he just was a personal revenge thing?
I think it was a combination of both. Widmark's choices, his first film after he left Fox was actually a B film called Prize of Gold, which was a strictly second feature. And then he goes on to The Cobweb at MGM and Tunnel of Love, and then proceeds to play a lot of cynical heroes in movies like The Trap and what's that Universal film for which he got a big piece, which he correctly called terrible, Backlash, which some people like. But his career basically survived, but really didn't go to the same heights as Mitchum or...
No.
And, I feel that if he'd gotten more roles like Pick Up on South Street, which for me is the perfect combination of the bad guy and the good guy, and a very strong, charismatic, I think it's probably his most charismatic performance, certainly his sexiest. I think if he had more roles like that, he might have joined that elite Kirk Douglas, Lancaster, and Mitchum club.
Well, I have to say that those are, all fine performers, and they all have the personalities come with them. When I'm impressed by actors, it's usually because I see them doing things that I don't understand how anybody can do them. Mm-hmm. And in at least 3 Richard Widmark films, I see him doing that. With Night in the City, the most impressive. Mm-hmm. It seems like a movie that Laurence Olivier would not be able to make that work.
No way.
But Richard Widmark can. What's interesting also is Richard Widmark is so involved in that the movie could very easily be very pretentious, and it is not at all. We don't get the feeling that this is some author's message about, life is miserable and everything is wrong. We just simply believe the character, and I think it's all due to Widmark.
It's time to talk about that incredible supporting cast.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, let's just mention Googie Withers dripping in acid. What a fantastic performance.
You actually don't need Gene Tierney in the movie with her there.
You do not.
Which is, unfortunate, but true. She's very sexy, and she's a more credible, femme fatale or whatever than most, in that she's a very practical lady. She knows exactly what she wants, and she, gets cheated as well.
Yes. Well, and also I believe it's her husband, played by Francis L. Sullivan.
He's almost the most romantic character in the movie, though. He's the one who's most driven and most madly in love. Nobody else loves anybody that strongly.
And yes, there's a certain sensitivity there beneath the
sure
the greasiness. Herbert Lom, wonderful as usual. Mike Mazurki, who I got to meet on a few occasions when I was casting at the Burbank Studios, who is magnificent in this movie, and in real life was the exact opposite. A well-read gentleman, kind, soft-spoken, never had a mean word about anyone, which makes me admire his performance in this film and so many others all the more. And finally, the most miraculous, amazing discovery, and I will try to pronounce this correctly, Stanislaus Zabisco, is that correct?
I think that's pretty close. Stanislaus Zabisco.
This is a wrestler who never acted in films before. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct. I checked him out pretty thoroughly. He was in the story. They talk about classic Greco-Roman wrestling, which apparently was the rage until about the years of the Depression, and then it went away, except as for special exhibitions. And in the 20s, there were several big stars who went from town to town, and everyone knew their names. And I believe they give the name of someone. I haven't got the note in front of me. It's like Hackenbusch or Hacken. It's a German-sounding name. They give the name in the movie, and it actually was a major competitor of Stanislaus Zabisco in these monstrous wrestling matches. And it was indeed considered a great art. It wasn't the clownishness. It had absolutely zero of the TV influence with all the costumes and things. And people would sit there and talk about all kinds of strange holds on your arms and your legs, and these big, monstrous, oily guys would go at it up there in the ring, and it was considered a great sport and a great art. And he was apparently one of the biggest.
That still doesn't tell me how this man was able to function so brilliantly. He's the only, I think, truly 100% sympathetic character in the movie. He's exceptionally naive. Certainly, I would never, I hope, be taken in by Harry Fabian.
Sure.
He's almost instantly taken in by him.
Well, he's a sweetheart, and the fact that he's such a sweetheart also redeems the Herbert Lom character.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of the Sancho Panza, effect. If this old man has his son, the son can't all be all bad.
In his commentary, Jules Dassin says that whenever Stanislav Zabisco would be playing a scene, Widmark would be standing behind Dassin, totally mesmerized by the man. You know that with that kind of schedule, Mr. Zabisco couldn't have had a tremendous amount of rehearsal time.
Oh, but you can look at the man and you can see that he's got this intense force of character that just comes in from outside the movie.
His death scene is so. I'm haunted by the way he delivers the line, "Open the window, my son." It's incredible. It's one of the miracles of film acting for me.
Did you know, I have something for you. Do you know the fellow who plays the young wrestler in the movie? I don't have his name in front of me, but he actually for 7 years was the man hitting the gong for Rank Films.
No.
The big muscle man with the big, whatever you call it,
the
thing you hit the
really?
gong with. Yes, that's where he went directly to that. And if you look at him from about 1949 to 1956, you'll see that's the same fellow.
I had no idea. That is fascinating. Anyway, the bottom line is we're running out of time, but both Glenn and I urge anyone listening to this show, if you like noir, and if you like it dark, deliriously dark,
and if you're not prone to the depression, if you're not prone to the depression or emotionally unstable, it's a very good movie. It's pretty shocking.
Why is it, though, that I find the film so exhilarating? Just talking to you, I want to watch it again. I don't feel terrible after watching this movie. I feel great. Why is it? Because of the craft in every department.
It's very exciting. The image of London as a living city in that movie is staggering. You don't get that in movies about New York and film noir. It's a movie. It's called Night in the City, and it's a good title. It's this strange, crime-ridden city that you have a hard time believing exists.
It's a film. Once you begin watching it, from the very first image, you will not be able to turn it off. Glenn, thank you so much. As always, a pleasure.
Thank you very much. It's been a great time.
Well, that's my show for today. DVD Classics Corner on the Air is conceived, written, produced, and directed by me, Double D. And if you'd like to hear some of my older, vintage shows, please go to www.dvdclassicscorner.net, where in addition to the broadcasts, you'll find hundreds of my print reviews of classic DVD releases. So, until next week,
keep well, keep happy, and keep listening.